Here's a shocking reality that might make you never look at your neighborhood the same way again. California is losing an invisible war against an army of highly intelligent, rapidly multiplying invaders that are literally taking over our homes, businesses, and communities. When Mikhail Price, a seasoned pest control expert with the South Bay Division of PestTech, walked through a tree-lined residential street in Stanford recently, he didn't see the charming suburban paradise that most people would notice. Instead, he saw something far more disturbing. What he described as absolute paradise for rats. Price has been battling these four-legged intruders in this particular neighborhood for over 5 years now. His company employs every weapon in their arsenal: strategically placed traps, thorough sealing of potential entry points, and deployment of those distinctive green poison cubes that many homeowners have become familiar with. But here's where it gets genuinely alarming. Despite all these professional interventions, the situation has actually gotten progressively worse. Just 12 months ago, Price's team could manage the rat population with bi-monthly visits to the community. Today, they're forced to make weekly rounds just to keep the problem from spiraling completely out of control. During one recent inspection, the results were nothing short of startling. Exterminators discovered deceased rats in approximately 2/3 of their monitoring stations, those flat, black containers loaded with attractive bait that are positioned around residential properties. The situation became even more real when a homeowner leaned over her deck railing and called down to inform the pest control team that her dog had detected rats living directly beneath her house in the crawlspace area. What makes this work fascinating is that it's constantly evolving, Price explained with a mixture of professional curiosity and obvious frustration. We find ourselves perpetually pursuing these rats, always one step behind their next move. But here's what most people don't realize about this growing crisis. Even when homeowners and business operators invest in professional pest management services, the challenge of keeping rodents at bay has become increasingly formidable throughout South Bay communities. This is particularly true when dealing with rats, creatures that scientists and pest control experts describe as remarkably intelligent, incredibly prolific breeders, and a rapidly escalating problem throughout California. Luis Agurto, who serves as CEO of PestTech, revealed that the vast majority of his company's South Bay operations now focus specifically on what experts call roof rats. These creatures go by several names. You might hear them referred to as sewer rats, black rats, or ship rats. But regardless of the terminology, they represent a uniquely challenging adversary. What makes roof rats so problematic is their exceptional athletic ability. Agurto explains that these are remarkably acrobatic creatures that have evolved to make their homes high up in tree branches. But here's the part most people miss. These aren't just tree-dwelling creatures that stay put in their arboreal homes. Instead, they use trees as launching points for much more ambitious expeditions. These clever rodents travel along an elaborate highway system made up of tree branches, roof lines, and fence tops. From these elevated pathways, they regularly descend into residential yards to feast on birdseed, pet food, and any other easily accessible nutrition sources that homeowners inadvertently provide. In communities characterized by dense tree coverage and closely spaced homes, roof rats demonstrate their remarkable jumping abilities by leaping directly from tree branches onto residential decks and patios. From there, they exploit any inadequately protected entry points to gain access to buildings, where they can establish colonies while remaining safely hidden from natural predators in the thick vegetation that many homeowners cultivate for privacy and aesthetics. And this is where the situation becomes even more complicated for pest control professionals. They must navigate not only the rat's intelligence and agility, but also the presence of household pets and protected wildlife species like the dusky-footed wood rat, which receives environmental protection status. The reality is that we cannot achieve complete rat elimination in these areas because the population has simply become too extensive, Price admitted candidly. Our primary objective has shifted to keeping them outside of residential and commercial buildings, essentially encouraging them to remain in their natural outdoor habitats. Our mission isn't wholesale extermination of every living creature in the area. Instead, we're trying to strike a delicate balance between preserving life while simultaneously ensuring human safety and comfort. Cesar Delgado, who operates the San Jose-based pest management business called Ratting on Rodents, has documented a steady and concerning increase in South Bay rat-related complaints since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. This upward trend affects both his residential customers and his commercial accounts, indicating that the problem extends across all types of properties. Marilyn C. Underwood, who directs environmental health operations for Santa Clara County, confirmed that her agency has observed a notable increase in rodent-related business closures at food service establishments. One particularly high-profile example involved the Cupertino Whole Foods location, which was forced to shut down completely in April after health inspectors discovered rodent droppings scattered across the store floor. Remarkably, that store has remained closed for months, with a Whole Foods spokesperson attributing the extended closure to comprehensive building renovations while asserting that the original contamination issue has been fully addressed. But here's where it gets controversial, and this is something that's sparking heated debates in policy circles right now. Santa Clara County records reveal that vermin contamination served as the official reason for inspector-ordered shutdowns of 39 restaurants and grocery stores in just the past month alone. Between January and June of this year, the department documented 183 violations related to vermin issues and ordered 104 business closures, a number that nearly matches the entire previous year's total. Dr. Neve Quinn, who works as a wildlife advisor with the University of California Cooperative Extension Program, acknowledges that limited data collection makes it challenging to provide precise quantification of California's recent rat population surge. However, over the past year, she has personally witnessed mounting rodent concerns across an incredibly diverse range of environments, from the most densely populated neighborhoods in Los Angeles to agricultural operations throughout the Central Valley. According to Quinn's professional assessment, this dramatic change is most likely the result of what she describes as a perfect storm of interconnected factors rather than any single cause. One prominent theory connects the rats' population explosion directly to climate change impacts, specifically linking shorter, milder winter seasons to extended periods available for foraging and breeding activities. A comprehensive research study examining 16 major U.S. cities, published in the prestigious journal Science Advances earlier this year, provided compelling evidence supporting this climate connection. The study tracked data over more than a decade and discovered that cities experiencing greater temperature increases over time demonstrated larger increases in rat sighting reports. Among all the cities analyzed, San Francisco ranked second for rat population growth. Rats possess exceptional abilities when it comes to locating food sources and producing offspring. Quinn explained in terms that highlight the challenge's scope. Climate change creates widespread disruptions across multiple systems. It affects agricultural production patterns, alters the availability of natural food sources that rats typically consume in outdoor environments. Alternatively, because temperatures remain warmer for extended periods, resources remain accessible for longer durations, which means their breeding cycles face fewer seasonal interruptions. Quinn also highlighted the impact of evolving state regulations governing rodenticide use. California implemented stricter licensing requirements for fumigant applications in 2024, a policy change that primarily affected rural agricultural producers who traditionally fumigate rodent den sites on their farming operations. Urban residents face different policy impacts through a controversial ban on anticoagulant rodenticides, commonly known as blood-thinning rat poison, that became effective in January. This particular poison type is exceptionally toxic, causing a prolonged death through internal hemorrhaging. Environmental advocacy groups have spent years warning about this rodenticide's dangers to non-target wildlife species, which can suffer accidental poisoning when they consume contaminated rats. While the legislation includes certain exceptions for agricultural and public health applications, pesticide manufacturers are rapidly pointing to this policy as a primary cause of the apparent rodent population boom. Our assessment is that these regulatory bans have exceeded reasonable limits and generated serious unintended consequences, stated Karen Reardon, who serves as Vice President of Responsible Industry for a Sound Environment, a trade organization representing pesticide industry interests. There was insufficient consideration given to understanding the downstream effects of reducing the rodenticide toolkit from what was already a limited selection of available products. Reardon noted that blood-thinning rat poisons continue to see widespread application throughout other parts of the country. She predicts that California will eventually reconsider its current restrictive approach. However, Michael Parsons presents a dramatically different perspective on this debate. Parsons, who describes himself as a rodentologist and self-proclaimed rat aficionado while leading PestX research initiatives, sees no viable future for blood-thinning poison applications. Beyond their inhumane nature, he argues, these substances fail to provide sustainable solutions. They produce dead rats without creating meaningful long-term impact on overall population growth patterns. Parsons has focused his attention on developing alternative approaches, including rodent birth control mechanisms and electronic smart trap systems that automatically reset following each capture. More fundamentally, he believes that effective rat population management requires human behavioral changes, whether through improved litter cleanup practices or proactive home security measures. He argues that simply declaring a war on rats is as ineffective as a parent declaring a war on cavities instead of teaching proper dental hygiene habits to their children. As long as people continue littering behaviors, rat populations will continue expanding. And once people begin managing their own habits more effectively, rat numbers will decrease significantly, Parsons stated with characteristic directness. I've even suggested on multiple occasions that humans are the real rats in this scenario, and our poor habits and hygiene practices are the root cause of this problem. But here's the question that's dividing experts and communities across California. Are we approaching this crisis completely wrong? Should we be focusing on eliminating rats through more aggressive poisoning campaigns? Or should we be examining our own behaviors and environmental practices that create the conditions for rat population explosions? And this brings up an even more controversial point that most people haven't considered. If climate change is indeed contributing to longer breeding seasons and expanded food availability for rats, are we facing a new reality where traditional pest control methods will become increasingly obsolete? Are communities like Stanford's leafy neighborhoods going to have to completely reimagine how they coexist with these intelligent, adaptable creatures? What do you think? Should California reverse its rodenticide restrictions to give communities more aggressive tools for rat control, even if it means accepting risks to other wildlife? Or should we be investing more heavily in the human behavior changes and innovative control methods that experts like Parsons advocate? Have you noticed increasing rat activity in your own community? And what approaches have worked or failed in your experience? Share your thoughts. This is a debate that's going to shape how California communities handle this growing challenge for years to come.